Welcome to She Sells Radio. I am so excited for today's conversation because not only are you going to meet a dear friend of mine, but you're also going to get to hear us work on his business together and map out a plan for a really incredible new online course that he's launching. And I'll let Dave introduce himself to you a little bit more in just a moment. But for context, I do want to let you know before we get into this, Dave is one of the most heart-centered and smartest people I've ever been privileged to meet. And I know you're going to resonate with him too, because I know for you, this isn't just about the money. Yes, it's about abundance in all areas of your life. And you know, we're all about that here on She Sells Radio, but it's also about living out your life's full purpose and serving people in a big way. And that's what Dave is all about too. So we're going to dive into what Dave is creating, work through any challenges that are coming up, and then hopefully arrive at a really great plan for him with his course launch. So Dave Baldwin, welcome to She Sells Radio. We are so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Elise, and I'm so glad to be here. Yeah, it is, like you said, it's really an honor to get to be on this show, and I just think about how many different things we've seen each other go through over the years, and it's been a fun process to come and get to be part of this. Yeah. But just for everybody out there, if we haven't met, my name is Dave Baldwin. My company is Baldwin Systems, and currently I am working on a course. It's a self-paced course called the Escape 8 to 5 course, as its name suggests, designed for folks that are in 8 to 5 type jobs that would rather be doing something else. And I'm excited to really roll this out, and I'll definitely be getting into more about that today. But people ask me a lot of times, what's your background and what do you do? And I say, well, pull up a chair. It may take a while because I've done a whole bunch of different things. And so part of what my thought process with putting this course together is for people kind of like me that have a lot of different ideas that they want to work on. A lot of times what I've had to learn over the years is how to create that practical grounding and develop the financial means necessary to make a lot of these ideas practical and work and actually work in reality. And so I'm really excited to share that with the world.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's going to be amazing. And we'll get into in just a moment, some of the more tactical questions on launching and wherever I can help you. But I think I always love starting with people's why. I think that's so powerful. I think for any of us who are entrepreneurs or in sales, it's like we have raised our hands and chosen what can be on some days pure hell. Like we're just calling it what it is, right? It doesn't matter how passionate you are. It doesn't matter how committed you are. There are days that weed out the strong from the weak in this field. And I think going back to our why and going back to what we're passionate about, at least for me, is the thing that drives me. And I think it would just be really helpful for our audience who's getting to know you and is going to kind of go on this journey with you of what does it look like to shape up and launch this course? Like, what is the why behind this for you? Why is this something you're so passionate about?
Yes, thank you, Elise. I mean, really, for me, the why is about freedom, but in a specific sense, I mean, freedom to be the authentic self, freedom to go, and that's what I really want to share with the world is that a lot of the things that we get into, the patterns we get locked in a traditional job type of setting, it almost becomes impossible to really be yourself because of the contracts that you're under, because of the restrictions and the rules that you have to follow. But I think in a more subtle way, I see that workplaces condition people with a lot of negative programming, and it's almost impossible to get out of while you're showing up and spending the majority of your time in the same environment every day. I won't say it's impossible. I mean, if you have a high enough skill level, you can go into any environment and have and show up as your authentic self. But I think that for a lot of people that are, if the 8 to 5 world is where you've spent your whole life and you're in a job and you're unhappy in your job, you're not crazy. There's a lot of people that are, it's just not a healthy environment to be in. And I think having spent a lot of my life in unhealthy environments, my big why is I want to be able to help create a world where, kids come out of college and they don't have to go spend 10, 20 years working at a job that they don't like just to pay the bills every day. I want to create a world where people can go and do their best and highest and most impactful work and not have to be just running on a treadmill for a paycheck. I don't think that needs to be the norm for anybody. And that's really the why that drives me in this whole process.
I love that. I love that. And one of the things I always say, because we have such a diverse group of listeners here, we have a ton of entrepreneurs, we have aspiring entrepreneurs, we've got corporate listeners. And I think it's like, this is just my personal take. Not everyone is meant to be an entrepreneur necessarily. This is, again, Elise's personal belief system. There are some situations where it really is better for people to be in corporate. But in that instance, to me, it's the alignment piece is so important. And that alignment piece is important for those of us who are more wired as entrepreneurs, where your working environment, whatever that is for you, if it's not in alignment with what lights you up, to your point, like feeling like you can really be yourself, which I get messages from a ton of people, all throughout the week of like, I don't feel like I can be myself and speak my truth and like live out my most fulfilled, authentic life in the role that I'm in right now. Like, it is time for a change. And so I think for today, it should be hopefully really interesting for people, not just to kind of hear, okay, how do we work on maybe some of the tactical elements of structuring this and pricing it and go to market strategy, but then also like hearing from you, just your passion for helping people get into alignment with an environment that's really suited to them, that helps them have freedom, that helps them have purpose. So this is going to be awesome. So you ready to dive in?
I'm ready.
Okay. So we're going to just have what I would do in a normal coaching conversation. I'd love to hear from you, Dave. Like, what challenges are you bumping up against? What questions can I help with? This is really our time to work on whatever aspect of the course you want to work on together.
So I think right now I am at the point in the development of my course, admittedly fairly early. So I'm just kind of figuring out a lot of these early stage questions. One of the things I've been thinking about is the pricing and the offers, how to actually structure the pricing and the offers, because essentially this is intended to be a self-service product. And the only live interaction with me that's going to be available, essentially what I have figured out is going to be $19 a month would be the base subscription to get into a community. And I'm going to do Q&A calls, but I'm not going to be doing any kind of coaching or anything like that. It's going to be more of just giving people an opportunity to share what questions they still have that the current course material doesn't answer. And part of what that's going to do is it's going to help me figure out what else do I need to create potentially additional videos, additional processes for. And it's also going to give people an opportunity to meet each other, interact with each other in a live type of a setting. Now, I've been thinking about what would higher tier offerings potentially look like. The tricky part for me is I'm not looking to be in the coaching business. I've had a number of people tell me I should do coaching. I really just don't. That's not where I want to go with this. But what I would consider doing would be working behind the scenes with coaches who want to, so one of the things I talked about on my website is how building courses is going to be a big part of this. So what I'm thinking about is, could I do maybe some highly specialized and selective type of coaching only for people that meet the criteria? But the other piece here is I don't really want to be working with one client for the long term. I would be more interested in working for maybe a handful of sessions with one client and that's it. Then I move on to the next one, because I just really feel like it's going to help. It's going to be mutually beneficial that way. I find it with my personality and where I do my best work, it's with new people for a short period of time. And I think it'll also help me develop a better course if I can expose the material to reality with a lot of different people. And so I'm trying to figure out where to it's essentially the couple of price points I have just that I'm playing around with. One is I'm thinking about doing a $1,500 6 consulting session package. Again, that would only be offered to somebody. The requirements I've mapped out here would be they have to be in the coaching business. I'm not looking to work. I wouldn't be looking to be hired by somebody that says, I'm trying to get out of my job. Can I hire you to coach me through it? I'm going to say, no, go take my program. And that's just going to be a standalone thing. Of course, I would love it if a coach joins my program and maybe they want to hire that person to coach them through then that's another story. But I think so. The requirements would be, it needs to be somebody, a coach who's not only they do coaching, they need to be established in their business. Not somebody who's brand new, just starting out and decided to be a coach last week, but somebody's been doing it for a while. Somebody who is actively interested in creating a product or a course, kind of like what mine is, and has a desire for scalable income. Not somebody that is comfortable where they are with no desire to scale, but there's got to be, they want to be making exponentially more than they are now, because otherwise they're just not going to be invested in the process like what I would guide them through. And ultimately, like, there's a couple of others that are not requirements, but they're soft pluses. One would be a timeline for an exit strategy already defined, like, do they know when they want to exit from their business? Are they doing coaching exclusively full-time and making a living primarily from their coaching income? That's a big plus, not absolutely required, but it's definitely a good thing. Do they have a daily execution framework in place? Do they actually write out and map out their daily plan and have that discipline in place? That's a big plus, but not required. So those are just a few things. And, I think the last thing I'll share on this price point here that I think is pertinent is that my goal of a 6-session process would be to help a coach overcome the problem of what I call unconscious competence. And I think this is the biggest issue for any coach of any kind anywhere, is that they don't know what they know. They've gotten so good at what they do that they don't talk about it anymore because it's second nature. And so their clients actually struggle because they only tell them about 10 to 20% of the steps involved, and their clients try to struggle with the other 80%. But to the coach, there's this big, massive blind spot. And my process is designed to fill that gap and help the coach realize, oh yeah, there's all these other things I just do constantly, and I stopped thinking about them 10 years ago because I've been doing them this whole time. So that's really and then there's a $4,500 price point I'm playing with, but we can go into that later if we need to. But that's
okay.
I'm trying to figure out what would be the best way to map out those prices and offers. So.
Okay. Awesome. Can I ask some clarifying questions?
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. So quick question, just clarifying the 1,506 consulting session package. And one of the things that you did well here that I want everyone to really hone in on is being very clear on who's your avatar for this, right? So it's like, if you're launching something new and you don't yet have a client requirement checklist of these are the things that have to be a yes for me in order to take on a client, go make that right now. Otherwise it gets hairy, it gets complicated. So I love that you have that. Here's my question. I got confused when you said it's a plus if they're doing coaching exclusively for their income, but if they're enrolled in your course, wouldn't they still have an 8 to 5, or am I missing a piece there?
Thank you. Yes. And it's completely my fault that you're missing a piece because I didn't talk about it here. So I'm actually not talking about them signing up to be a member of the course. So here's the missing piece. Is this course is actually my showroom course, as I think of it, because part of what I wanted, like, I'm going to actually roll out additional courses and build additional businesses out of each one. And essentially part of what I want to do is help coaches in the skill of creating courses. And for me, I need a credibility piece. I need to have my own course sitting here to be able to say, here's a course that I built. And if you want to build a course like this, then that's where that training comes in.
Got it. So this is kind of, it's separate.
This is separate. This is under the umbrella of my main company. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So where do you want to start? You want to start on the self-service course? You want to start on mapping out? Because it sounds like we're really mapping out kind of pricing tiers and structures for really, it's a couple new initiatives that you're rolling out, if I'm understanding correctly, right? Yes. You've got your course that you're launching, and then and
I think the course, the 8 to 5 escape course, I don't think I'm going to I don't think there's going to be any additional price points for that course specifically. I'm looking at that as that's just going to be a straight $19 a month subscription. The additional price points I referenced in the beginning would be part of my main company. So, but if you have other recommendations, I'm open to anything you might suggest on that.
Sure. So I think and when you and I were chatting about this before, we talked about this, and I know you said you were feeling good about the 19 a month, right? Is that so I'm just going to do a little disclaimer for everyone listening, but I think it's all about, to me, pricing is all about alignment. And it's about, I think in general, we want to be able to say confidently that people are going to receive at least 10 times the value of what the price point is of anything we're putting out there. And so when you're looking at pricing something, being able to kind of break it down and say, okay, they're getting this, right? And a lot of times, to your point, Dave, of what you said, if we undervalue the things that we just kind of take for granted in our knowledge, whether you're a coach, whether you're any sort of thought leader, a lot of times we forget about all these things we bring to the table for our clients. And we do that too when we're pricing out courses. We forget, hey, there's separate value in if they get, access to all the calls, if they get access, if there's any sort of downloads or PDFs, if there's any sort of group calls with you, right? And like actually mapping out what's the value of each of those things and being able to say with integrity, this is at least, again, 10x is the benchmark I use. I always like to have at least 10x, if not more, in terms of value they're getting. But then I often find too that people undervalue. So we talked about, I think I just need to give this as a disclaimer, is that to me, 19 feels so low. But I know, like we talked about this before, and it's a big part of it is alignment, and it's what feels good to you. And if that feels good to you, do it. If someone said, I want to, I'm going to build my empire this way and it's going to take 3 months and I don't have a huge audience and I'm going to charge $19 a month, I'd say, we got to either get you a way bigger audience or we got to charge more. Right. But I have launched things that low to start and kind of figured it out. And, having been someone who started there, I look back and I'm like, okay, I was really undercharging when I was charging at that level, but it helped me kind of figure out what I was doing. And so I just wanted to say that because I think it's important that you also get paid what you're worth in this, right? But it's like, if the 19 a month feels good to you and that's feeling right and feeling in alignment, let's roll with it, because that's not going to be your big money maker, at least not to start, right? Like
it's possible that I might start with an introductory price point and allow people to keep that price that join initially. And then say for new participants, it goes up to a certain price later. I mean, I'm not totally ruling that out as a possibility. Okay. So I guess I kind of think of it as priming the pump to get something started early. I don't want to have a higher price objection be something that prevents somebody from participating, especially early in the process.
Sure. And so we can go deeper there if you want, because there's some things on pricing psychology there. There's some things on memberships you might want to think about, but we can also, again, this is your call. So you want to go into some of the higher ticket offerings, or you want to do any more on the membership?
Well, I think it sounds like there might be something interesting worth exploring here when you brought up about memberships and pricing psychology. So I guess I'm curious, do you think it'd be better to say, just come right out of the gate at a higher price from the beginning with this you're thinking $19 a month is just too low? Because I know if you value something too low, people might look at it and think it's just not worth that much. So I definitely see the trade-off.
I think part of it is looking at who is your ideal client, and is your ideal client someone where $19 a month is a lot for them, right? Because I know you said you didn't want to price it to where there's a price barrier. To me,
well, that was part of my thought process, is I wanted to make this available to people in jobs that are, currently where they're maybe not making much, and $19 a month may actually be a significant expense to them.
Okay.
So that's part, making it accessible to a lot of people is a big part of my thought process here.
Okay. So I think with that, I think it's just getting clarity on a few things. It's like, number one, who's the avatar for this, right? Just like you did so well with the 6 consulting session package. So if the avatar really is someone who's maybe in a, maybe it sounds like maybe like a minimum wage situation, right? It's like, you've got to decide, is that who I want to serve with this? If so, cool. If you wanted this to be a big money maker for you, which I'm not hearing you say necessarily right off the bat, but if you did, you would need to have a big audience. Like, we could do the math on it if we wanted, but you need to have a decent sized audience. So the going stat, and my clients who are listening know, like, I'm not about averages. I really believe we create our own reality with what we think is going to happen, but it may be helpful to consider, in general, 3% of your audience at any given time is going to buy. Right. So if you look at whatever the size of your email list is, whatever the size of your social following is, especially considering based on the social algorithm, only a percentage of people are going to see any posts you do about it. Right. You could kind of calculate and extrapolate what is 3% of my audience, and I can project from there how many sales I'm going to make. The other thing to keep in mind is, on average with memberships, retention is about 3 months. So you want to have a plan and a strategy in place for what are we doing for retention? And if you're consistently putting out new content, that can be a great thing for retention, but you're also going to want to factor that in, that the average customer value then would be, what is that? $57 if it's 3 months. Doing math in the middle of a Monday afternoon in my head here. I think that's right. I think that's right. But so you want to factor that in, and you'll also want to track it once you get it launched and live. But It's like, okay, if I know one customer is going to net me $57, does that even cover the cost of my marketing? Does that cover the cost of my time of putting this out there? To me, I think this is, again, this is Elise's framework. You've got to have a clear avatar and something that feels right and in alignment for you. But generally, I think about 99 a month, like anywhere between 50 to 100 a month, and you'll probably pick a number that ends in 7 or 9 in there, right? If you want to look at like pricing psychology and what has people buying, that's like, you're not going to have everyone buy it, right? It's low enough that for most people, it's still an easy yes, as long as they're getting value from it. But it's like, let's say you priced it at 99 a month. I'm just throwing it out there. One customer then becomes worth 297 versus 57,
Mhm.
assuming the 3-month retention. That may
You
not
also
feel in
got me
alignment.
wondering if I
Yeah.
should actually do it as an annual price, because I kind of like the idea of somebody committing to a year and paying it like it's a higher commitment level that way, or
Mhm.
offering a deep discount if they pay for a year up front.
Yeah, I think that would be very, I mean, when I think about, I mean, gosh, I was buying new software today for our contracts, and that's so normal, right? Here's the annual price, or here's the monthly. And so if it's the monthly, it's more. So I would play with that. Again, with pricing, I think it's two things. It's, can you say you're giving at least 10x the value? And then what number feels in alignment for you? That to me. And then looking at, okay, what will the market bear? Right. And then just deciding, like, we made a strategic decision with She Sells a while back that, at least for right now, like, we are a high-end luxury brand. And I made the strategic decision. I'm only offering high-end services right now because so much of it is, it's just on me as we scale and grow out and build in more consultants, but I don't have bandwidth for a ton of lower ticket things right now. That was a strategic decision. It's not to say that at some point we won't have lower ticket, because we probably will. Like, that's part of the vision. But I think for you, I would look at, where am I at right now in my life? What is my bandwidth? What's my positioning going to be? And if I'm positioning this as 19 a month, is that going to be in alignment with also selling higher ticket services? And it could be, it's all just positioning, and it's about what's going to make sense to people from a pricing psychology standpoint. I love it when offers kind
Yeah.
of stack and make sense in terms of numbers, and it can all flow. But again, you've got two different kind of businesses here we're talking about too. So that may not even be a thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Because it's not,
yeah.
I'm not necessarily thinking in terms of like minimum wage earners like you were talking about, because I think that
Mhm.
that's a very tough scenario to
Yeah.
deal with. I think it's more of somebody who's uh, making a decent income, but doesn't have a lot of free cash left at the end of the month.
Mhm.
That seems to be a common scenario. Like, and it might be somebody working an office job. It could be somebody working in the trades. It could be, somebody with either family responsibilities or, but they're, yeah. So
Sure.
yeah, but anyhow, I think
Yeah.
it's, yeah, I could take a lot of what you said and just think about a lot of different variables.
Yeah, I would play with it. And I think part of it too is, people will, so even someone in that situation, it's like, what are they paying for cable and phone every month? Right. I bet, and this is, again, this is just at least guessing here, but I guess they're spending at least a couple $100 a month, most people, for entertainment, right? For phone. And so it's like, it's not that they don't have the money, it's, what are their values? What are their priorities? And so I want my clients to value what I put out there so much. I find when people invest more, they do value it more. So I would play with that, and I would say, how close to 100 feels okay to me per month? Or, to your point, if I want to, like, if you want to package it as a more of a course, like a one-time payment type of thing, or an annual membership, you can play with those numbers too. So if you want to try to nail a specific price point right now, we can. Or if you say, hey, I'm going to go back and this is going to give me some food for thought to think
Yeah,
about,
this
that's
I need
cool
to
too.
process this. Yeah,
Cool.
I'm
Okay.
not gonna nail it down right now,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, you gave me a couple of good angles to consider on that. So I
Okay.
appreciate that.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about, you want to talk about the other programs and pricing structure of those?
Sure,
Is
sure,
that
yeah.
helpful? Okay. Was there anything else first on the escape the 8 to 5 that you wanted to talk through?
No, I think we hit everything on that for right now.
Okay, cool. And so just super quick, this is quick. This is for my brain to clarify. There's no upsells from that. There's not like a VIP version. There's not anything additional they're getting. It's just the 19 a month self-service. and we're leaving that what it
At
is,
this
right?
point, I don't have anything in mind for that. Not to
Okay.
say it couldn't change, but yeah, I don't have anything in mind as far as an upsell for that at this
Okay.
point.
Okay, cool. Well, let's talk about, why don't we dive into some of these higher tier packages? And you told me a fair amount about the 6 consulting session package. Then I know you said you were playing with another one at 4,500. So I guess tell me, before we go any further, what do you need to get clear on before the end of our conversation that's going to be helpful with these packages?
I think what would help me right now in terms of what would, in getting my thought process clear, is, am I speaking the right language or thinking about the right problem from the standpoint of the market for my second offering? So when I think about an offering for coaches, am I thinking about a problem that really is as important to other people as I think it is? It's easy to get stuck in my own head and come up with my own theories, but it's really, so when I look at what I envision as being the problem that comes from unconscious competence or just things being second nature and skill sets not transferring, I see that as having a successful coaching business with no way to scale it. And I've seen people, not even just coaches, but I've seen this with CPAs, with with attorneys. I've seen it with people in the therapy world. I mean, really any of those do some degree of coaching, but you have a business that's built around the unique skills and personality of one person. And I can't scale myself any more than anyone else can. And so I think that's really the problem I'm trying to solve. So the question I'm worried about when you ask, what do I need to be clear about, is, do people actually care about that as much as I think they do? Or am I just kind of projecting my own thought process onto the world and, about to build something that just doesn't have the relevance that I'm expecting? Because I've done that before. And that's kind of might need some outside perspective on that piece.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm happy to share my perspective on that now, if you're asking. Yeah. I think so part of this could be, this is literally the season that I am in my life right now. But as you said, it's like, yes, it is a huge problem. And to me, and I think and this, because a ton of coaches, you do coach people. There comes a point where it's like, you're going to make a strategic decision about how your coaching business is structured. And you're going to decide, do I want to, is it really, I'm good being capped at a certain level, and I want to make whatever it is, a couple $100,000 a year, maybe up to 7 figures a year. And it's on me mostly and on my personality. And I'm good with that. Or do I have a desire to scale and expand beyond that? And I'm not saying one is right or one is wrong, because I think it's really about alignment and what feels right for that individual. I don't think every coach needs to scale necessarily, but as a coach who is currently in the process of doing what you help people do, because that is a desire of mine to expand us beyond just the Elise Archer brand. Yes, it is huge. I'm literally sitting here mapping out, okay, for everything that I've just taught intuitively for the past, however long I've been running my business, how do I get this so structured that someone else could come in and teach this? And how do I get this duplicatable where it's not just on me? And we're in the process of launching a consultant certification program to bring in other coaches to come and get trained in this. But as someone where that's not my natural, I can sit down and do it. I can sit down and brain dump and say, okay, what are the steps? It's this. It's not the most enjoyable part. And no doubt I'm probably missing parts as I do it too, right? That'll come up as I go and figure it out. But I think it absolutely is a big problem. I know that it's a market because I know other people in my field who help, right, with packaging your knowledge. How do you package your knowledge into a product or a program or a course? Because oftentimes when you're the one who holds the knowledge, you're not the best one to get it out of your head and package it. So all of that to say, yes, it is it is a problem. And I think you absolutely have a very viable market with what you're doing.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. Sometimes I just have to get at those reality checks because I stare at something too long and I'm thinking, does everyone else think seeing what I'm seeing? So I'm glad to hear that. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like not everyone will know that because they won't be there yet, but you're right. People, they will have enough pain point around it where they'll be like, yes, I need this.
Well, no, and I think you're like, it also validates what I was thinking in the beginning. Like there is a distinction that needs to be made of, do you actually want to scale your coaching business? Because there are coaches who don't.
Yeah.
And that's a question that needs to be asked up front, because it's like, it does take, as you're going through right now and experiencing, a massive investment of time and energy to create something scalable out of something that's not. So it's a question of, people have to ask, do you actually want to make this effort, or are you just kind of happy to coast along where you are? If you are, that's fine. This, like you said, nothing's for everybody, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things I would look at, and you can, if you want to go in another direction from here, we can, but I think getting really clear from your positioning on what are you helping them scale, right? So the 6 sessions, $1,500, it's like, that's the how, but what's the end result? Is it helping them create it, turn it specifically into a course that's customer facing? Is it helping them? Like, what if someone is like me and they say, no, I actually want to launch a certification program for this, and I need someone to help mapping out how that's going to be structured and what that's going to look like. Cause that's another element of scaling, right? There's all these different elements of scaling. There's also just getting your systems and structures in place. Something else fun we're doing right now, building out like 8 million automations in the business. So at least doesn't send manual emails to people anymore. But that's another element of scaling, right? So I think just being very clear on the front end, if you're helping someone scale their coaching business, what does that look like? Is it specific to the course? And if it's the course, what does that look like, right? Are you helping them actually like create it? Are you helping them map it out? Are you helping with marketing strategy? Like just getting very, very clear on what's the deliverable.
So that's a good question. And so really at the core of it, it could be a course, it could be a certification program, it could be an internal training program. The form of it could be any of those things, but at the core of what I'm really doing is I say I put people's genius in a bottle, essentially. Like I'll take your unique expertise and I'll package that. It'll basically distill it down to its most potent form and create a process where what people perceive as unique about only you being able to do, I will actually show you how to create it so other people can learn it. Because I think the most common misconception, or the myth I hear out there all the time, is that there are so many things that you have to just be born with a talent for. And I strongly disagree with that. I believe anything can be learned if you have a desire to learn it.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like riding a bike. You know, anybody, I mean, obviously you may have a certain physical limitations that might prevent you from being able to ride a bike, but you know, we don't tell kids you have to be one of the natural bike riders, otherwise you're out of luck. It's like, no, you want to ride a bike, you have to learn how. And it's just like that with anything else.
Sure. No, I love that. So here's a few things that I would be thinking about then. So in terms of pricing and kind of mapping this out, I think to me, there's one potential gap that you might look at when you're looking at pricing structure. There's the information, right? So it's like, it's DIY, do it yourself. To me, that feels like a course. That feels like I'm going to take a self-paced course. It's not going to do it for me, but it's going to tell me what I need to do to bottle my genius. Now, what's interesting about, like, to me, if I was looking at this outside in, that would be the entry level. If you're going to create it, is something like a self-study course that these coaches could take to bottle their genius.
There will be, yes, there will be a self-study course. It's just not in existence yet.
Not in existence yet. Okay, awesome. So that one would be kind of like DIY. Then I'd say the next tier up would probably be done with you. So we might look at that 6-session package to say, what does it look like for me to do this with someone? To say, we're in these 6 sessions, we're going to map out this strategy, we're going to be working on this together, yada, yada. And then the top tier could be done for you, which would probably be a much higher investment on their part. But if that's something you're interested in, going in and actually helping someone create this asset and create whatever that scalability piece is in their business.
Boy, have I wrestled with that question of, do I want to do it for somebody? And it's, I'm always kind of, so the answer is a resounding, it depends, but yes, but here, and I'll just flip one thing a little bit on its side here. As far as the way my product development process works is, I would actually, the way I envision this happening is when I do roll out this $1,500 6-session offering for helping somebody bottle their genius, that process of working with people is actually going to be eventually what becomes the self-paced course.
Okay.
And eventually, once I have it done to a self-paced course, I'm going to stop offering live interaction, because then I'm going to spend that time developing the next offering. So it's kind of how I envision my product development life cycle going.
Okay. What I like about you doing that, and I'm always a fan of this too, is get people to pay you for it first. So before you spend all the time, because as someone who develops courses, it's a lot of work. So getting proof of concept, getting people to pay this for you first, higher ticket. I like that a lot. So, okay. So you're clear on that, but then let me ask you before. Yeah, go ahead.
This is why I'm not doing an upsell in the 8 to 5 escape program, because my idea would be to continue adding additional courses that become additional streams of revenue. So I would have a little bit of a concern if I added an upsell, that might take time away from developing additional products. So
100%. Yeah, 100%. So what questions so I kind of talked and threw out some options, but what questions do you have from there in terms of pricing structure here?
Yeah, I think the last question is the one you've already raised yourself. Should I do a done for you offering? Because I could say, like, I even envisioned, like, how much would somebody have to pay me to say, I'll do the whole thing for you, kit and caboodle. And I kept going to higher and higher numbers. I got to 250,000 and still thought it wasn't enough money. So I'm thinking, because the dilemma I have is, if I'm going to put the amount of sweat equity into building it, why wouldn't I rather just own it myself? That's really what it comes down to. Why would I want to get paid to build something for somebody else to own? Okay. That's kind of the dilemma I haven't sorted out yet. So,
and when you say, so the 250K price point, was that helping someone that was building a course for someone, or that was, okay. So here's what I would say with that is, I think, gosh, I'm just thinking about, because I've worked with numerous different service providers, and the pricing structure is always different, right? It's like, sometimes it's monthly, where we're paying a retainer every month for this amount. I think you will be challenged to find people who will invest that much, unless they just, they're coming from a really big corporation and they need help building it out and yada, yada. It's like, could someone pay that? Absolutely. Is it probably going to be few and far between based on the avatar? Yeah.
Right. So that's exactly what I was thinking. Yep.
Yeah. So then the question becomes, okay, is that showing up because this is something I just don't really want to do? Right.
Well, I think that's the other question, right? Because it just keeps going back to, like, do I want to put the sweat equity into building something that I'm not going to own at the end of the day? Like that's where I'm thinking I'd rather just build it and own it myself than get paid to build it for somebody else. That's kind of that. So yeah, that's where I haven't come to a final answer on that, but that's kind of what I'm sitting with.
Yeah. So something I would consider, and usually what I find is, and this is how I think about some things too. It's like, if someone is willing to pay enough, like for me at this point in my life, it's all about when I'm working with client and I love what I do. Like I'm like you and I could probably just sit down in front of our computers and go all day long, because we love our clients. We love what we do. We're passionate. And when you do that, you're trading time away from your life, your friends, your family, everyone you care about. So with pricing, sometimes it's like, someone's actually willing to pay me this, I'll do it. Like, I'll step away and do it, but I know I'm trading this part of my life for it. And it's not something that like lights my soul on fire. So I would probably look to that as an indication of, the done for you isn't, like, that's just not resonating with me right now. So I'm not going to put a lot of energy into it.
Yeah. It's one I might just kind of let sit on the back burner. If I can come up with a way to do it that really, I feel like really does the line, it's something that I'm open to, but it's just not, I don't have anything that really clearly fits that right now.
Something else you might consider though, because I know you also said you like a shorter term engagement. Have you thought about doing, strategy days with clients? It's like, what would it look like to take that 6-session consulting package and turn it into a full day or even a 2-day intensive and charge anywhere from probably $10,000 to $20,000 for it. And they get the deliverable of their full like package and what they're going to receive. They get everything outlined in that time together. We'd probably want to look at the pricing on the 1,500 because it may not make sense with that pricing.
Depending on what else they compare it to. Yeah.
Yeah. You'd probably need to bump up the pricing of the consulting session package. But VIP days, people are usually being charged more because it's it's full time with you. You've got a venue, you've got space, yada, yada. So how does anything like that
Oh,
sound
I would definitely
exciting
be
to you?
open to that. Yeah. Yeah. That's
Mhm.
again, I would view it as part of my product development life cycle and not
Mhm.
but I do like that it's a once and done kind of an offer that, yeah, like if somebody
Yeah.
says, hey, I've got, yeah, I could see that working, that type of structure working.
Yeah, totally. So I would play with that. And I mean, I'm happy to share again, this is at the time of this recording, these numbers will probably change at some point. But just for context and for structure, for us, we do a half day. So a half day with clients, only do half days virtually because by the time you drive there and get there, it's not enough time. But virtual half day, $6,500. A full day virtual is 10,000. A full day in person is 12,000. And so with any of those, they leave with, here's your game plan of what you're getting, here's your strategy, yada yada, and the whole day is custom to them. So I'm thinking about for you, and I think that's a very reasonable price point. It's not the cheapest, but it's by far not the most expensive in the industry, and you and I are catering to a similar audience base. So, and then from there they could move into perhaps some sort of a continuity program with you, whether it's 6 session package for follow-up, whether it's moving into your course. I'd think about what am I going to have in place for continuity, but something like that might be a good offering, and you could play with the positioning. If you felt like someone needed 2 days to work with you, then you'd probably look at closer to 15 to 20,000 for the 2 days if those first price points felt right. But those, again, I want to share with you everything
Yeah,
I
no,
can in
I
terms of
like
what we're
that.
doing, if that's helpful. So
Because yeah, I like the way that you're laying that out. So yeah,
mhm.
I think I've got plenty to go back and think about, and also figure in, how the 8 to 5 escape course plays into this, and it's all very much a work in progress. And like
Mhm.
I'll echo what you said. All of my numbers may change by the time anyone talks to me again. So yeah,
We have the right to raise the prices because that is how, and that's also, I think, one of the great things about, just for anyone who's listening to this and is like, this sounds really exciting. Like, I like what he's doing. I like his energy. It's like, get in on the ground floor, while the pricing, because it will only go up, because it should only go up from
oh yeah.
here. So that's always fun. So Dave, for me, before we start to wind down here, any other questions on anything we talked about? Do you feel like you at least have some sort of a plan going out of this, or is there anything I can still clear up for you based on what we talked about?
I mean, I certainly could come up with questions all day long, but I got
Yeah.
a lot of good value out of this, and you have me
Okay.
thinking about the building a strategy day jumping off point offering. And so yeah, I got to get back to my drawing board and keep working, and look
Yeah.
forward to sharing more with folks as everything develops.
Absolutely. Awesome. Awesome. Well, this is one question I always ask at the end of just mapping and strategy sessions. And then after that, I want you to tell everyone where to connect with you. But I think just to integrate everything we talked about, what's the number one takeaway that you're taking with you today into the creation of your programs and what you're building?
I think what you've actually illuminated for me is that with respect to my product, the 8 to 5 escape course, I need to do a better job dialing in on it, precisely who my audience is. I realize I
Mm,
haven't, and I kind of knew that, but a couple of the questions you asked made me realize that needs to be a higher priority on my list, is really mapping out a persona and a profile for that. And I think, just also thinking of that in relation to pricing, because who my audience is going to really determine to a great extent what the price needs to be for the different offerings. So that's my takeaway today.
awesome. Awesome. Dave, tell everyone, where can they go to connect with you if they want to learn more about your courses, or if they're a coach and they're like, I need to bottle my genius. How do I do this? Tell everyone where they can connect and learn more.
Great. Thank you. So yeah, my website is dave-baldwin.com. Don't forget the hyphen. And if you want to check out the course, it is escape8to5.com. And those are the two best places to find me. If you also look up for me on social media, my handles are, it's Baldwin Systems is the handle for Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
Awesome. Awesome. Hey, thank you, my friend. This was fun to put on my pricing hat today and kind of think through strategically with you. And I want to just acknowledge you for what you're creating. It's needed. It's important. There are so many people in the world who need what you're doing, and the world is going to be better served. So thank you for coming on and for what you're creating. And I'm so excited to see it all come together. And for you, my listener, go connect with Dave, have fun learning more about everything he's doing. It's really, really important work in the world. I'm so grateful for you as a listener, and we will see you next time on She Sells Radio. Bye for now.